If you're building visibility, podcast guesting, speaking, creating content, but your profitability isn't scaling at the same rate, then this episode is for you. So welcome to the podcast Profits Unleashed, where established coaches learn how to build authority infrastructure using podcast guesting as a predictable client acquisition channel, because visibility alone doesn't create stability. Infrastructure does. So I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today we're going to be unpacking the financial side of scalable authority. I'm joined by Nick Jain. He's partner at Eagle Rock CFO, an AI-enabled consulting firm that helps mid-sized businesses become more profitable quickly. He holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and has worked at some of the largest professional service firms in the world, including McKinsey. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Karen. Really excited.
Awesome. So, look, when businesses begin scaling, more visibility, more clients, more complexity, what is the most common profitability blind spot, should I say, that you see?
I think there's two. Number one is people, especially founders or early stage leaders, don't understand how much to value their own time. And number two is everything is done manually and there were no systems built. So the first one is like, look, when you show up to, let's say, a podcast episode, or you spend an hour walking your dog or going to the groceries, there's a value to that time. And, for an average person sitting in a Western country, a founder, their time is worth somewhere between $50 to $300 an hour. So when you go walk your dog or show up to this podcast, you're basically paying a $300, $200 tax. And people don't appreciate that. So when you are sitting there like typing data into your system, you're costing yourself $200 or $100 or whatever you value your time at.
Interesting. Because a lot of people the bottom line, I believe in the beginning, they really do not understand their numbers, and they maybe don't understand that some of the tasks they're giving themselves really isn't best suited for them. They're
Correct.
lower level tasks that could be outsourced so they can focus on the most important thing in their business. So look, for you, Nick, what inspired you to even go down this route?
For us, I think my business partner and I believe we are at a really unique point in history where technology, both AI and non-AI technologies, gotten to the point where we can give a service that previously was only available if you were willing to pay $1 million a month to a Fortune 500 corporation. That's what I've done most of my career. And that was because it required a lot of smart people working 100-hour weeks for months on end to do. And that's really expensive. But now technology's gotten to the point where we can you can take away a lot of the human effort and make technology do so much more of the work and make that cost effective for businesses. And we saw this business opportunity saying this was not possible 18 months ago. It is now possible. We can give a service cheaply to somebody that is valuable to them. And that's exciting for us. We just saw a business opportunity that aligned with what we're passionate about and is now physically possible.
Yes, it's definitely knocked down a lot of walls, but I think people aren't taking advantage of it. They're still a little bit wary, and they need somebody like you to actually implement this new technology and do it in the correct way. So for you, from your time at like McKinsey, now working with mid-sized firms, what separates businesses that scale profitably from those that simply are scaling revenue, if you like?
The biggest difference between businesses that scale versus don't scale is that businesses that scale have a system or an engine. Okay, so and the analogy is like, think of a shoemaker who makes custom shoes. Okay, he or she may have a great business, but it will never scale because they're making custom shoes. The businesses that scale tend to be like factories. They have a machine, and that could be whether they're giving coaching therapy, that could be whether they're manufacturing pharmaceuticals, that could be if they're doing investment banking deals. The businesses that scale have a system, they are run like a machine. And you have to think about your business, as weird as that is, even if it is a highly human services oriented business, it will only scale if you run it with very strong processes and like a machine.
Absolutely. Because, and I get it, I speak to, certain coaches or, therapists, right? Or hypnotherapists, things like that, where a lot of the stuff, yes, needs to be bespoke, it needs to be personalized. But the problem with that, so right, you can't scale that. Going back to the beginning that you shared, that could be just $300 of your time, because you're trading time for money. And if these people aren't even charging that amount for their service, there's no way they can scale. But I think a lot of people are missing out on the point that a lot of these things could be scaled with processes in place, because with the technology, you can create courses, you can create communities where you could sort of, adjust it to more of a small group coaching where you're focusing on one particular problem and make it scalable. So for you, coaching, if a coaching business is sort of generating, I don't know, anywhere between 100K up to 500K a year. I know you in general tend to work with people at the next level, but if you look at this sort of niche and they want to scale, they want to scale their authority through visibility channels like, getting up on stage or podcast guesting, what financial infrastructure must already be in place for them to be able to keep up with fulfillment, I suppose?
Sure. So I'll give a great example. So again, you're right. Our clients tend to be larger businesses, kind of $5 to $50 million in revenue. But we ourselves are a 2-month-old business with revenues very much in line. If that's several $100,000 of revenue, right? So we are a small fledgling business ourselves, 2 months old. So I'll give an example of the systems we've built to ensure that we can scale. And I'll give 3 examples. Number one, we know that here's how many clients that one human being can serve. And roughly we estimate that one human being can serve about 30 clients. So when we have 31 clients, we need to hire somebody else. We already know this. And our aspiration is when we're building towards 31 clients, but when we get to 25, we'll hire somebody so that we don't stop at 30. That's number one. We understand kind of where our business hits bottlenecks. Number 2, our sales and marketing process is a giant engine. We're reaching out to hundreds of people a week, target businesses a week. My business partner and I are probably doing 50, let's say like 30 to 50 calls a week. So like 5-10 calls every single day. That's our machine, right? We meet 50 people a week. We, try and get them as customers. We try and ask for references. And then we have an entire technology infrastructure that supports all that, both in terms of doing automated outreach, as well as analyzing, or a CRM to keep track of that data. And then finally, on the actual service delivery side, again, we're not a coaching business, but we have to deliver services to our customers. We have a bunch of technology that does that systematically, and then also systematically tells the human being, me in this case, need to do X, Y, Z. So we understand where our business hits bottlenecks. We understand that mathematically. Number 2, we have a process for sales and marketing, which again is send a bunch of outreaches out and do 5 to 10 meetings every single day, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, and then go deliver to the customers when we win them. And every part of that is like a machine, right? And it's tough.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, it is tough. But it's
I love the fact that it is still combining. I think a lot of people have this, not necessarily a fear, but this perception of what AI can do for you. Yes, you can build out AI workflows, and yes, it can be part of the process of generating leads, but you are still doing the outreach yourself. And I do think that a lot of people, they think that just having all these systems in place, it means they're just sat there waiting, if you like, because they've heard this term attraction marketing, and they think that equates that you're just sitting there waiting for people to come to you. But there does have to come a point where you've got to get out there and do the outreach. It doesn't have to be salesy and spammy, but I think there's a lot of coaches out there that are avoiding that. Look, what you've just shared there, this is such an important distinction, because Yeah, a lot of coaches can believe that scaling is about increasing visibility, doing more interviews, more speaking, uploading more content to their social media platforms. But what you're highlighting is that without having the financial clarity, if you like, and the operational structure, growth actually increases instability. There's got to come a time where you've got to have conversations with people. And that's not what I thought. Looking at your bio, and it's all sort of very AI generated, and you'd think that that's all you're using. But I love the fact that you're still actually doing that initial, getting out there and making those initial, starting the conversations and allowing the AI to sort of, measure it, if you like, and monitor it and see where you are.
We'll go a step further, right? Like the inbound marketing, organic reach from, doing podcasts or YouTube trainer videos or SEO, those all work, but they take 18 to 24 months to work. And if you sit around for 18 or 24 months, you starve to death and you can't pay rent, right? That'll work. So we're doing all of that. We've got YouTube content, we're doing LinkedIn, we're, showing up to podcasts, we have amazing SEO. That's all working, but that's not going to yield us clients for anywhere from 12 to 24 months at all. Like, I've done the math. Our SEO is amazing. We're best in class at SEO. We're not going to get a single customer for that for about 14 months is my estimate. So what do we do in the 14 months? We can sit there twiddling our thumbs, but no, a better use of our time is kind of just going out there, talking to lots of people, and some 95% of them won't become customers. That's okay, but they will either give us introductions to people or we will learn something from that conversation. And hey, 5% become customers. That's great.
Absolutely. Love your outlook. I mean, your whole firm is AI enabled. So for you, how is AI changing financial visibility for growing all these service-based businesses?
Sure. I think I'll describe kind of three use cases. Number one is just automation. We have AI doing a bunch of automated stuff for us. That includes both on the marketing side, but also our core product is a set of software and tools that help businesses analyze. And that used to, the type of work we do was largely done by human beings 3 years ago. Now, instead of having a team of 20 consultants that I have to pay $40,000 a month and charge my clients for that, AI does like 95% of that work. So that's the use case number two. It does our real work for us. Now, that's a little bit more difficult if your primary job is to be a coach or a therapist. But in businesses where you can have AI do real paid labor, you should. That's number two. And then number three is what our clients use it for. And our clients, by the way, we give away like a free version of our technology that's useful for small businesses. And the important thing there is that AI is kind of enabling small businesses to answer hard analytical questions that wasn't affordable before. And a really silly example of this is like, imagine you want to go on a diet. A year or like 2 or 3 years ago, you'd call up a dietitian, book an appointment, go talk to him or her, and it would cost you, you'd have to drive there and back, waste time on the phone, setting up the appointment, show up, and you're going to cost you, let's say, $200. Now you talk to ChatGPT and say like, hey, what should I do? Right? It asks you a couple questions and it gives you a reasonably good answer. And the thing that's differentiated there is 2 years ago, it was not affordable for the average American because the average American doesn't have $200 to go hire a professional dietitian to lay a meal plan, or $2,000 is what a formal meal plan costs. Now you can do that for 2 pennies on ChatGPT. So it has made it much more affordable. And that is true for businesses as well, because now they can have a lot of insight and analysis on their business with a really expensive CFO like me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's. I think a lot of people, they may be afraid that they're going to be redundant, if you like, but it's you still need to, if you understand how it works and how it can actually help your business. It's a tool, right? It's not necessarily going to completely, get rid of your.
AI is AI. You can think of it as 2 use cases. The first use case, it is the smartest advisor you will ever have access to. AI is now already as smart as Fortune 500 CEOs and PhDs in mathematics and medicine. Like, that's number one. You have access to just the world's most brilliant free advisor that is unimaginably, amazing. That's number one. And then number two, if you're a little bit more technical, you can get AI not to just give you advice, but to do real work for you. And the type of
Hmm.
real work it does, it depends on the business line you're in, right? It would be different for a therapist, that it would be different for a sports coach, it's different for a professional advisory service, which we do. But AI can do real work if you're willing to, if you're both comfortable with it and a little bit technical enough to get it to go do real work for you.
Oh my goodness. I mean, now I do think, I mean, I've been doing this 5 years and I actually almost can't remember how I managed all the processes without AI. I mean, it really has made life so much easier. It's just a lesson that, you've got to get involved. You've got to get involved. Otherwise you are going to be left behind. So for you, what pricing or margin mistakes do you see service businesses making that can, quietly kill scalability?
Sure, it goes back to, so the economic term, the fancy term is economic surplus. It basically means it's a fancy word for generating value beyond what you could do doing something else. And a silly example is, let's imagine I could go get a job at being a manager of McDonald's at $20 an hour. Okay, if I'm charging $20 an hour for my therapy service, then I'm generating no economic surplus. I'm spending a lot of effort making the same amount of money I could just going to work for someone else. And if I'm now able to charge $22 as a therapist and I could only make $20 at McDonald's, I'm generating $2 of surplus. And that $2 of surplus is money that I can reinvest into something else, such as marketing or something else. And that's what a lot of small businesses don't appreciate, that if you're not generating excess profit or an economic profit above and beyond what you could do doing something else with your life, then you are not going to grow your business, because the way you grow business is you generate a surplus, an excess profit above what you should fairly be allowed to make, and then reinvest that into growing your business. So
Oh,
our business,
yes.
the profits we generate are above the profits we could do just going to work for somebody else. And then we're not taking those profits and putting them in our personal bank accounts and spending them. We're reinvesting that back into the business with more technology, more meetings, more, customer events, whatever it is.
Brilliant, brilliant. See, it's the only way. It's the only way to scale, guys. So, I mean, I think mindset is an issue. So let's just cover that for a bit. What do you think? What mindset or identity pattern, if you like, keeps founders from looking, you know, as I said right at the beginning, I really don't think they know their numbers. So what is it that's stopping people from really analyzing this and working with this?
Three things, I think. Number one, some businesses don't collect their data, right? If you don't have data, then you can't analyze it. Number two, some people just never grew up or never had the experience of what analysis looks like, right? They've never worked at an investment bank or a consulting firm or been a data scientist. So they may have the data in spreadsheets, but they don't know, how do I extract meaning from this? The cool part of that it is now you don't have to hire somebody, and even if you don't know how to do it, you can drop it into your favorite AI tool and say, tell me what this means, or what should I do about all this data? And you don't have to think about it, which is wonderful. And then the third is, some people don't think that, or some people don't appreciate that data helps you make better decisions. There's a lot of, especially founders, that are kind of gut driven or vision driven, and they don't temper that vision or gut with data and evidence, right? You need kind of both sides of your brain. You need the grand vision, you need the risk takingness, the entrepreneurial spirit, but you also need to be bounded by the laws of reality, right? Like, we all would love to fly, but there's this thing called gravity that exists, and you need to be aware of it, right? And the same is true in the business world. You can have this grand vision of how you want to build your business, but you need to tie that back to the laws of the real world.
Yeah, yeah, because otherwise it's not going to pay the bills. It's not going to pay the bills. So what practical excuse would you say do business owners give for not investing in financial structure, and what's the real cost of that?
Sorry, could you rephrase the question? I didn't quite understand.
So when founders are not investing in their financial infrastructure, really what's the real cost of not doing?
I think three things. Number one is you're stressed out at night because you don't know how your business is doing. Are you making money or you're losing money? Number two, no investor will ever invest behind your business, right? No bank will lend you
Mm,
money. If you don't know how your business is doing, no venture capitalist, no investor will lend it. Like, there's some startups that we work with, and they're going trying to go raise funding rounds and they don't know what their numbers are. The very first thing investors will ask is like, well, tell me your numbers. So that's number two. And number three, going back to that building a scalable system. Look, you can't have every system, whether you're running a factory for, a car factory or a hospital, they know their numbers because they have to the only way you can run a system is by measuring what's happening at each stage.
Mm. And that is, I think, because a lot of coaches that I deal with, yes, they are the visionary, they are the creative side of that. And maybe that's why you need to either partner up with somebody who knows what they're doing on that side of it, or and using AI as you've shared. But again, if you're not that technically minded, you still need somebody to help you implement these systems. So if a coach listening wants to move from inconsistent growth to structured profitability, what's the first financial step that they should take? And if they want to find out more about, what it would look like working with you guys?
Sure. So the very first financial step you should take is figure out your customer acquisition cost. So ignore how much you charge your customers for a second. Ignore all that. Figure out how much time and effort it requires you to win one customer. So, and a silly example of that is if it requires you 15 hours of meetings and you value your time at $50 an hour, 15 times 50 is $750. So the cost of winning one customer is $750. That is the single most important business, and that will make or break. It will define how much you should charge your customers. We'll get into that math later if you want, but every business, whether you're McDonald's selling burgers, whether you are Microsoft selling $1 million data contracts, you should know what your customer acquisition cost is.
Yes. And that is, for me, I don't know why. There's, we talk about the 80-20 rule, but I see it manifesting absolutely everywhere. And sometimes, I can have a really good month, or I can work really, really hard and maybe do even more calls, if you like. But it always comes back to the 80-20 rule. Is that a thing in your world, or does that sort of click in place?
Yes and no. So the funny thing is the 80-20 rule is from this very, very deep fundamental law of the universe that says diminishing returns. That at some point, harder work or more energy into a machine has diminishing returns. It's like how much can you stretch a rubber band? It gets harder and harder and harder to stretch a rubber band. And it is a very, very deep fundamental law of the universe that no matter what a human being does or a machine does or what the universe does, things get harder and harder until they get impossibly hard. What the converse, not the converse, the complement of that, or the implication of that, is that businesses, like, yeah, you get a lot of benefit out from doing less work often, and often, like, at some point you just stop putting effort into task A and you allocate it to effort B. And a simple example is, like, if you're making a beautiful PowerPoint, after about an hour of making a page, how much better is it really going to get? Just stop, right? And go do something else, whether that be read a book or go talk to a customer or whatever it is.
I love that. And that helps with, look, I know everyone's different. I am personally ADHD. And I did see some stats the other day from another coach who said that a lot of founders, they tend to be that way. And what I have found that really helps me is sort of going along the line of what you've just shared there, is you're going to only do focused 25 minutes of work, and then you have to have a break. Even if you're like really in the flow of doing something, you'll be far more productive by doing that.
So I started using that system about 4 or 5 years ago. Mostly as a matter of discipline. I don't know if there's any magic behind it, but I started using that system just as a matter of discipline. And what you do, it's called, I don't know if you know, but it's called the Pomodoro system.
That's right. Yeah.
The Pomodoro kitchen timer. So you work for 25 minutes, and then you take 5-minute breaks. Then I think every 3 hours you take a longer 10-minute break or something. So I would crank really hard for 25 minutes, have no music playing, no YouTube, no whatever, nothing distracting. And then I have 5 minutes to go get a glass of water, go to the bathroom, talk with a colleague, watch a YouTube video, whatever it is.
Love that. Oh, I'm on the right track. I love that. So look, if you're building visibility, guys, through podcast guesting, here's the strategic takeaway, if you like. Authority amplifies revenue, yes, but it also amplifies weaknesses. So yeah, more visibility means, or would hopefully mean more lead flow, more delivery complexity, if you like, more cash flow movement, more financial responsibility. But you got to have these systems in place. Nick, where can people find you, or what should the listeners do next if maybe they are at that level, right, and they're ready to take the next step?
Sure. So our company website is eaglerockcfo.com. You can learn about our business, but more importantly for this audience, we offer a completely free version of our software that actually does a lot of the analysis, literally for free, no strings attached. We're not selling your data. It takes 30 seconds to set up and generates all these beautiful graphs and also some pretty good analyses. Obviously, if you want to move to be a paid customer, great. But even if you don't, use the free version of our software. It is definitely it's free, number one, and it's super easy to set up, requires no technical knowledge whatsoever. If you want to connect with me personally, my email is on our website, eaglerockcfo.com, or connect with me via LinkedIn, where I'm very, very active.
Fantastic. And if you're out walking the dog, driving, and you can't catch all that, don't worry. Nick's details will be in the show notes, so resort back to that. And look, to the listeners, if your infrastructure isn't built to support that kind of growth, scaling can become stressful instead of strategic. And that is why authority positioning combined with back-end systems, they've got to evolve together. Look, podcast guesting can absolutely become a predictable client acquisition engine, but profitability is what will sustain that. So before chasing just more visibility, first ask yourself, is my infrastructure strong enough to handle the scale that I say I want? That is the authority difference. So if you're already generating visibility, but you're maybe a little bit unsure whether your positioning and your back-end systems are, they're structured to convert and scale, then I am opening applications for the Authority Infrastructure Intensive. You can find out more in the show notes. Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I can see that, doesn't matter that you're a new business with your background, with your complete understanding of this is going to be a phenomenal success. And combining that with the long-term strategy of SEO, I think that's another important thing for everybody to understand. Have the short-term strategy, like what Nick's just shared at, you've got to do some outreach at some point, combined with the long-term strategy of having all your ducks in a row is the perfect way to move forward. So thank you for your time. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're